stories only God could write, true testimonies of faith, miracles, revelations, life-changing encounters, the missionary, and the power of God in action. Get ready to be moved, to be inspired, and to renew your hope and your faith. What is the quietest sound a parent can ever hear? It's the sound of a baby not crying, not breathing deeply, and not growing. It's the terrifying silence that falls when a tiny life, a gift of pure potential, is being choked out by an unseen illness. When doctors say there is nothing left but time and prayer, where does the true power to heal reside? This is the story of Maria, the missionary, and baby Caleb, whose tiny body was losing the battle against an impossible diagnosis, until a single prayer broke the silence. Our central figure is Maria Sanchez, a missionary in her late 30s. Maria is characterized by a radiant warmth and an unwavering belief in God's immediate power to heal. She is a woman of profound joy, but her greatest emotional struggle defines her ministry. She suffered multiple late-term miscarriages herself. This pain left her with an intense, almost ferocious compassion for mothers facing the loss of a child. She believes that the pain she endured gives her a spiritual authority to fight for the life of every child she encounters. Her greatest fear is allowing hesitation to override the clear voice of God. Maria's faith is not gentle. It is aggressive, fueled by the memory of her own empty arms. She carries a quiet authority that allows her to bypass fear and speak life into impossible situations. Anya and Samuel Davis were a young, vibrant couple living in Charleston. Their world stopped 6 months ago when their baby boy, Caleb, was born with a rare, devastating congenital heart defect that medicine could only manage, not cure. Caleb was perpetually frail. His skin often tinged blue due to lack of oxygen, and he was completely dependent on medication and oxygen support. He was a beautiful but perpetually weak child. The doctors at MUSC Children's Health had performed several complex surgeries, but the damage was irreversible. Caleb's condition had recently worsened critically. He was failing to thrive, and the doctors determined that he had less than a month to live without an impossible, risky heart transplant that his tiny body might not survive. The weight of anxiety on Anya and Samuel was unbearable. Anya spent her days rocking Caleb, whose breathing was constantly shallow and labored. Her greatest fear was not just losing Caleb, but the fear that she had somehow failed as a mother to protect her son. Samuel, Caleb's father, was struggling with a hidden anger at God for allowing this suffering. Their life was defined by the beep of monitors and the constant anxiety of Caleb's next shallow breath. That Saturday, the family brought Caleb home from the hospital under hospice care, a final, painful acknowledgement that the battle was lost. Anya sat in their quiet living room, holding Caleb close, feeling the fragile flutter of his heart against her chest, preparing to say goodbye. Maria, the missionary, was driving through the quiet, historical neighborhood, heading to a community prayer breakfast. Suddenly, she felt a powerful, undeniable spiritual arrest, a physical compulsion to stop the car. She looked up and saw the simple, unassuming house where the Davis family lived. She heard an audible whisper. A mother is saying goodbye. A life is being surrendered. Go now. Maria parked and walked up to the house. Anya answered the door, her eyes red from weeping, recognizing Maria only as a friendly face from the neighborhood. Can I help you? Anya asked, her voice weary. Maria's eyes immediately focused on the tiny, fragile Caleb in Anya's arms, seeing the subtle blue tinge around his lips. She didn't hesitate. My name is Maria. I did not come for small talk. I was sent by God right now. He told me a mother is preparing to let go of her son, but he said his plan for this child is not finished. I need to pray for Caleb now. Anya, exhausted and vulnerable, felt a strange pull. She had zero energy left for skepticism. She simply nodded and allowed Maria into the living room, where the air was thick with grief and the smell of oxygen. Maria looked down at Caleb in Anya's lap. The baby was barely moving, his eyes half closed, his chest rising and falling weakly. Maria knew this wasn't a time for a long, gentle request. This required a fight. She placed her hand on Caleb's tiny chest, right over his malfunctioning heart. She prayed with a power that vibrated in the small room. She wasn't asking. She was declaring, "Little heart, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to be whole. Every defect, every weakness, every limitation, it must leave this body now. The breath of God is replacing the breath of man. Caleb, live and be strong." As Maria finished the prayer, the room fell silent. Nothing happened immediately. Caleb remained still, his breathing shallow. Samuel, who had been watching from the doorway with his arms crossed, was about to say, "See, nothing." But then, Caleb, still nestled in his mother's arms, did something he hadn't done in weeks. He gave a single, loud, and robust cough. It wasn't a weak sputter, it was a strong, clearing sound. Anya froze, tears hanging on her cheeks. The terrifying silence had been broken by the sound of life fighting back, and the cough was followed by a tiny but distinct sound that made Anya gasp. The baby's skin color, usually faintly blue, seemed to shift immediately, becoming a shade pinker. The battle for Caleb's life had just moved from the operating room to his mother's lap. The cough was followed by a gasp from Caleb, and then, most miraculously, a deep, full breath. Anya immediately felt a change in his chest. His breathing, which had been fast and shallow, was now steady and deep. Caleb opened his eyes fully, eyes that were clear and focused, not the dull, half-lidded gaze he normally carried. Anya held her son close, tears of confusion and staggering hope streaming down her face. "Maria," she whispered, his breathing. "It's normal. I can feel his heart beating strongly." Samuel rushed over, grabbing his stethoscope, which he kept close at all times. He pressed it against Caleb's chest. His hands trembled as he listened. His face drained of color. He listened again, moving the stethoscope over the area of Caleb's major defect. He pulled the stethoscope away, staring at the ceiling. I can't hear the murmur," he stammered. "The defect murmur is gone. His rhythm is strong." "What happened?" Maria simply smiled. "The defect was commanded to leave. God specializes in impossible repairs. The change in Caleb was undeniable and immediate. He was suddenly alert, hungry, and full of energy. For the first time in his life, he fussed like a normal baby, crying loudly when hungry, kicking his legs, and grasping his mother's finger with powerful grip. He didn't need the oxygen support the hospice team had set up. Anya, fueled by a terror that this was temporary, immediately called the hospital. Dr. Reynolds, Caleb's primary cardiologist, was skeptical but agreed to see them immediately, assuming the stress had caused Anya to hallucinate. When the Davis family arrived at MUSC Children's Health, the atmosphere was thick with professional skepticism. Dr. Reynolds calmly put Caleb through a full examination, starting with the echocardiogram, the ultimate proof of his congenital heart defect. As Dr. Reynolds performed the ultrasound, the room went silent. Dr. Reynolds stared at the screen, her professional composure cracking. She performed the scan again, moving the probe slightly, trying to find the massive defect that had defined Caleb's young life. The memory of the final, devastating diagnosis flashed through Anya's mind. The structural defect is too large. We cannot repair it. But on the screen, the heart was pumping perfectly. The structure was sound. The critical blockage was gone. The heart was normal. Dr. Reynolds, a brilliant physician with 20 years of practice, finally put down the probe and stared at the parents, her eyes wide. "Mr. and Mrs. Davis, I don't know what you did or what happened in that living room. But the defect, it's not there. It's anatomically perfect. The hole is closed. I have no medical explanation for this. None." The confirmation was overwhelming. Anya collapsed into Samuel's arms, weeping, this time tears of pure, unadulterated joy. Samuel, the angry, skeptical father, dissolved into tears, falling to his knees and finally releasing the anger he had harbored for months, replacing it with overwhelming gratitude. Caleb, oblivious to the medical and emotional drama, was simply cooing pink and perfect, looking around with clear, bright eyes. The hospital staff, witnessing the complete reversal of a terminal diagnosis, were stunned. The chart for Caleb Davis, which had been marked terminal hospice, was immediately changed to miraculous recovery. The revelation for Samuel, the father, was the most profound. He realized his anger had been fueled by his feeling of powerlessness. He found Maria's phone number and called her immediately. "Maria?" Samuel choked out. "I owe you everything. You saved my son." Maria's reply was the final guiding revelation. "I didn't save your son, Samuel. God fought for your son because he saw the pain of your surrender. He saw a father who was ready to break, and he intervened to show you that his power is greater than any heart defect." Caleb's life is a testimony to what happens when love refuses to surrender to death. Maria then told Samuel that his mission was not to keep this miracle private, but to share it. The next morning, the Davis family made an unusual decision. They canceled all of Caleb's follow-up appointments and drove straight to their church. The great revival happened the next morning in the small community church. The pastor, aware of Caleb's terminal condition, had planned a special prayer for the Davis family, anticipating a time of mourning. Instead, Anya and Samuel walked in, not carrying a frail child on oxygen, but a perfectly healthy, cooing baby. The entire church gasped. Anya walked straight to the front, holding Caleb high in her arms. She recounted the story, her voice ringing with the joy of a mother who had stared death in the face and won. She displayed the echocardiogram showing the catastrophic defect, and then the final report from Dr. Reynolds stating the anatomically perfect heart. The truth revealed was simple but earth-shattering. God's power bypassed medical certainty. The miracle wasn't a gradual healing. It was an instantaneous, precise reconstruction of a tiny, vital organ, commanded to wholeness in his mother's lap. The church erupted in a cacophony of tears, shouts, and applause. People ran to the altar, overwhelmed by the tangible proof of God's intervention. Anya, the grieving mother, was now the triumphant vessel of the miracle. Samuel, the angry father, stood next to his wife, weeping freely, finally letting go of the anger and embracing a faith he could no longer deny. Dr. Reynolds, the skeptical cardiologist, later confirmed the healing to dozens of colleagues, admitting she had witnessed something she could not explain. This single miracle rippled through the Charleston medical community, forcing even the most rigid minds to pause and consider the unknown. Caleb's life became a living testimony. His medical chart, which contained the dramatic contrast between the pre- and post-miracle scans, became the most powerful document the Davis family possessed. Anya and Samuel, transformed from fearful parents to fearless evangelists, dedicated their lives to sharing Caleb's story. They became fierce advocates for families facing impossible medical odds, always pointing to the missionary who refused to accept the final diagnosis. The most profound transformation was in Samuel. He returned to his work as an architect, but now dedicated a large part of his income and time to building safe homes for medically fragile children, using his skills to support the lives God had fought so fiercely to save. The story of Caleb, the miracle baby, remains a celebrated legend in Charleston, a proof that the most profound miracles happen not in the spotlight, but often in the quiet, desperate moment of a mother's surrender. When science closes the door, faith commands a reconstruction. If God can instantly reconstruct a tiny, complex human heart, what impossible situation are you facing that is waiting for the powerful command of faith? Trust Him with your biggest impossibility today.